tame. ADHD, we're running wild. Focus fading, chaotic child. Turn the volume up, take a ride. In this crazy storm, I can't hide.
Hey, Doug, what are we going to do tonight?
The same thing we do every week, Todd. Try to record a podcast.
That's great. That's even better than last week. So,
We're
right.
trying.
We're trying. I mean, we're streamlining things a little bit this week. We learned from last week. I don't know if anybody noticed from last week's episode, but it's when I first uploaded it, I was kind of quiet because I thought maybe my mic was too hot, and I kept adjusting it to make sure I wasn't overpowering Doug. And then the end result was is you could barely hear me unless you cranked it all the way up. So I went in and increased the volume on that part of the podcast and re-upload it. So hopefully, if you haven't re-downloaded the last week's episode, you can do now and get the I wouldn't say improved audio, but louder audio. But this week I'm keeping an eye on the volume levels on OBS to make sure that I am not sounding like I'm in the other room when recording. So
yeah, if we can just get a little bit better every week, you know, who knows where we'll be in the long run.
I think maybe I need to actually, can I adjust the volume on the mic itself? Let's see. Turn that up right there. Oh, like, hey, that's louder, right?
I think you are louder now.
There's an actual volume knob on this microphone, and yeah, there we go. Now I'm peaking a little bit better on the EQ. Talk some more, Doug.
Todd's over there fiddling with his knobs.
Yes, playing with knobs. They're sliders actually, but that's cool enough. But now I have Doug sent over some screenshots of tweets or posts or whatever.
Memes and whatnot, Yeah,
so now that's what you're going to, if you're watching the video side of this, that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see our faces for podcasting, and which is fine. You don't need to see us to hear us or understand. So...
yeah, just use the theater of the mind to figure out what these voices look like.
What do you think of that ADHP logo with the state of Washington?
The new logo, I love it. It looks great. I think it's gonna attract some listeners. I love it.
We can thank Microsoft Copilot for the AI artwork that is what it is. So it was one of the few that actually got the letters correct. You know how when you use AI and you say, I want this word on this thing, and it goes, oh, what are words? What are letters? And
why do I have to use words?
Are you sure this is supposed to be P? Maybe it's supposed to be an R or an F. Like, no, we want.
And for some reason, it just has fingers melded into it.
Or like if you're telling it to create a person, the person always has weird eyes, or like a weird mouth, or like 18 fingers. So, you know, AI. People are worried that it's going to take over the world. When they figure out how to do a proper hand or a proper face, that's when we need to be worried.
Yeah, once it does fingers right, run for the hills. So we got a lot to get to this week. We have a jam-packed episode. We've got a primary topic. We got news of the week. And then, as always, we'll finish up with a nice What's Geek this week to sort of cleanse our palates of politics. Cleanser. And in case this is your first episode, this is our second one, and this is ADHP, which is Attention Deficit Hyperactive Politics. Yeah. It's a couple of neurospicy dudes talking the weekly events, trying to just basically vent our frustrations with the world today, but we're also trying to come with some positive ideas and solutions to move forward on, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, sorry, I need to mute my phone. It just decided to give me a notification for something.
It got excited.
It's like, hey, don't forget to take out the garbage.
So for those of you that heard last week's episode, we went over my 5 principles. One of those principles was to attack crime at the root source, which means universal health care and a basic income. Now, I came across something interesting today. We're recording here on Sunday, March 30th, 2025. And someone mentioned that Richard Nixon is actually, this was the cynical historian brought up in a video I was watching, that Richard Nixon actually favored a universal health care and a basic income plan. So that shocked me because, Nixon's one of the great villains in American history,
Right?
but he was a Quaker, and he did have a heart to some degree. So basically, just put the thought in my head: what if we could take the burden of providing health care and a living wage off of business owners? What if you could simply pay market rate for labor and not worry if your employee can afford clean clothes, a place to live, a hot meal before and after work, and a way to get to job on time?
Yeah.
So you may have heard of Netflix and chill, but what if I told you about Medicare and FAP?
What? Medicare and FAP?
So FAP in this case is not what your dirty mind is thinking of, Todd.
I mean, FAP has always meant like the sound your hands make when you're shining your helmet. Yeah.
Well, in this case, FAP means the Family Assistance Plan.
Oh,
So
of course
this-
it does. Just like
Yes.
BBC always means British Broadcast Corporation.
In my life, yes.
I mean,
But
big,
so
beautiful, yeah.
But the Family Assistance Plan was a welfare program introduced by Richard Nixon in August of 1969. So FAP came out of 69.
Of course it did.
Which aimed, and what it did is it aimed to implement a negative income tax for households with working parents. So it was influenced by LBJ's War on Poverty, and it was meant to replace the aid to assist families with dependent children. So just there's no fun acronym in that one.
Okay.
But it was essentially a universal basic income. And I feel like if Nixon and I can agree on something, maybe it's actually a good idea. So I went in and I looked through kind of the history of basic income programs. We've had some in America, some pilot programs, and there's been others throughout the world. The most consistent benefit of basic income appears to be an improvement in mental health. And that's really important to this podcast.
Yeah, it is.
And arguably, that's a positive to every aspect of life. So some examples include in Manitoba, I just hit the mic, which is a great move by me.
That's okay. I didn't hear it.
Oh, cool. I'll smack this thing around all I want. We'll fap the mic. I apologize. I'll see myself out. But some examples include, so in Manitoba, Canada, they had a program. It saw a decrease in hospitalizations due to mental health diagnoses, as well as an increase in children completing education through 12th grade rather than dropping out early to work. In Native American communities, where they kind of reviewed how casino profits have been spread out as a basic income to tribal members, we saw lower instances of behavioral and emotional disorders and better relationships between children and their parents.
That's good.
And that right there is just going to increase education and basically having good citizens. And then another one I pulled out here is in Stockton, California. This was a recent one. They evaluated the results in 2019. They found that most participants had been using their stipends to buy groceries and pay their bills. And again, that's consistent in all these studies, is people aren't frivolously spending their money on drugs and that kind of stuff. That's one of the arguments always against the UBI. But here they used them to buy groceries, pay their bills. 43% had full or part-time jobs, and only 2% were unemployed and not actively seeking work. So whether or not the incentive to work diminished during these times, there was a positive psychological effect on individuals based on how they felt in having a guaranteed income each month.
Right. It's weird. It's weird how people think, oh, they have a nice cell phone or they're driving a decent car. They must have money. Why are they in here? Why are they getting food stamps? Like, you don't know the guy's story. You don't know that, they could have lost their job in their house last week or last month. And the car they're using is like their mother's, or the phone they have is the phone they got when they still had a job and had a good credit rating. Things can change in 30 days. It doesn't, just because someone has an iPhone 13 or whatever the current one is, and and they're driving a 2016 car, doesn't mean that they're they're trying to scam the system. That shit can happen. So, yeah.
And most people are not 2 good months away from becoming millionaires, but almost all of us are 2 bad months away from being homeless.
Right. Oh wow, that's a good analogy. I've never thought of it like that. I mean, it's there. The amount of wealth people have, there's no way they can spend it all in their lifetime unless they give mass amounts of it away. Like I think Bill Gates, like 10 years ago, gave away a bunch of money to the Washington State Special Olympics. I think it's actually closer to a decade ago, but still, he gave away millions of dollars just to help kids who want to play sports.
And I think the best example of sort of philanthropy of that sort is Mackenzie Bezos. Like, what the media doesn't cover, and maybe we'll cover this in a future episode, is she's been giving away her wealth. Like, right, she got half of Jeff Bezos's money in the divorce, and she's just been giving it away hand over fist to all these various causes. And the results of them are actually positive. There's actually good things happening because of the monetary investment. And that's just, and it's stuff that we could do as a country through higher taxes, but again, the media doesn't cover the positive results there.
I don't remember her name, but she was the daughter of Roy Disney, and she was talking about how people like myself that have an unlimited source of income should pay more taxes than the average person in America, because we have more money. We should be spending more in taxes because we have more coming in, so there should be more going out.
And just the bottom line is if you are successful in this economy, that means, the economy fit you. It worked for you. Yeah. You benefited more from the economy. You have more to give back.
Exactly.
And then there I go punching the mic again. Looking at holistically these various UBI programs, the lesson appears to be that providing a UBI, a universal basic income, sometimes called a guaranteed income, Alexander Hamilton called it a citizen's dividend. But
I like that.
I think that's a great way to sell it, is that as a citizen's dividend, profits exist because of markets. Markets exist because of people. The people deserve to be compensated for their value. But what it really does, though, what having this guaranteed income does, is it curtails the rat race mentality that most Americans are caught up in. The reporting of mental illness is way more prevalent in the USA than non-Western countries.
Right.
We can compare it to Nigeria, which is one of the.
Hey, Doug, I'll be right back. I have to go do something real quick.
Yeah, no worries. But we compare it to Nigeria, where we have one of the lower developmental rates, but we have far less mental health issues. Now, some people will argue that's because they don't have an individualistic approach to society. They are more of a social society where admitting to a mental illness is not okay. It's not socially acceptable to admit you have one. So therefore, the reporting is lower. So what studies have done is they've taken a look at things like bipolar disorder, which have biological markers. They look at substance abuse, which has actual, hard numbers. You can see where substance abuse is being done. And lastly, they've looked at suicide rates. And that's, again, not one you can fake. And so what we see is that the USA leads by far in all of those categories of bipolar disorder, of substance abuse, of suicide rates, versus the less developed countries that have more that don't have the rat race that we do. So what I'm trying to get at here is that by having a UBI, basically people can relax and be themselves and focus on work that's good and needs to be done. So any drop in work incentive by a UBI is more than made up for by an increase in mental health. When people are mentally healthy, we are less likely to lose them to mental health disorders, to substance abuse, to suicide, and then you actually get more productivity out of them. Right? We can all deal with a little bit less human productivity if we're getting more humans to be productive. And this goes without saying with AI and automation, which is really taking the menial tasks away. And how do we take care of people once we don't need menial labor? Right? We all should benefit from the population we're a part of.
Absolutely.
So we do have sources for all this. We'll list those in the podcast description. Please look them up. You can review them yourself, make your own determinations. And we encourage comments on the YouTube page or on Facebook at ADHD.rocks on Facebook. Please interact with us on this. We'd love to have further discussions.
The Facebook page, it would be facebook.com/stream.adhd.rocks. Just so
There you
clear.
go. And the YouTube is?
It is Todd ADHD Rocks. But if you just search for ADHD.rocks, I'm sure it'll pop up because I have it coming up as a podcast on there as well as, and I just lost audio.
Oh, you just cut out.
And
You just went.
Yeah.
You went real quiet.
What the hell? Okay, that's weird.
You're coming back now.
Yeah,
You're fiddling with your knob again, aren't you?
I wasn't touching it. All of a sudden, it just went all the way down. That's really weird.
I hate it when it goes off when I'm not touching it.
I was just cleaning it. Okay.
Ma'am says it's a little fireman. When you rub his helmet, it spits in your eye.
It did it again. That's fucking weird. That is weird.
Do you have some sort of audio, like, volume correction on?
Maybe. Because I got too loud, it turned it down. So maybe that's why.
Quiet down, Todd. Quiet.
I don't need to be yelling. So.
All right. Well,
what was I saying
topic.
before I got muted?
You were talking about the YouTube page and
yeah.
ADHD.rocks and it'll come up.
Yeah, just search for ADHD.rocks. Or you know what? It would be easier if you go to ADHD.rocks is the website. That's my link tree, and everything is linked on my link tree. So that's.
And then you're gonna like and subscribe to the podcast in whatever form you prefer, so that you don't have to search for it each week and you can keep listening.
Easiest way to find us though is on Spotify, and you can comment on those as well. So.
All right. So with that, I'm ready to transition into some weekly politics news.
Ooh.
Cue the theme for that. Oh, right. We don't have one.
I mean, either one of us could like go out into Suno and go create theme music for political discourse, and then play whatever it gives us.
We'll do it in post.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got quite a few stories to get through here. We'll see if we make it through all of them. So first story is actually two stories. So basically we have the 3 prominent Yale professors depart for Canadian University, citing Trump fears. That comes from the Yale Daily News. And then we also have a Russian scientist working at Harvard detained by ICE at Boston Airport. So what we're seeing here is the continued chilling effect on American excellence. Basically, if anybody, we have proud Americans moving out of the country to do their work, but we also have brilliant international scientists and other experts that are being treated as if they're as if they're being suspected of terrorism.
Okay.
So we have so if I can get to my story here. So this is coming from The Guardian. A Russian scientist from Harvard Medical School has been detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, according to her friends and colleagues. She works with the Russian scientist oh boy, I should practice this name, but it's Miss Petrova, where she was detained at Boston Logan International Airport back in February when she was coming for a trip from France, and she was stopped by U.S. authorities. Basically, she committed an error on a form, and that was enough for them to revoke her visa. The point being, they are trying to just terrify people into thinking that you just don't want to come here, because any kind of mistake could be a reason to subject you to further scrutiny and perhaps detain you. It gets worse than this, though. She had a form. They're working with her. She's probably going to be okay. But what we've also seen is Canadian citizen Jasmine Mooney was detained by U.S. authorities and was held by ICE for 2 weeks before being released. We had a German tourist who was a tattoo artist, spent 6 weeks in detention, including 8 days in solitary confinement after being arrested at the Mexican border. There's been a handful of other detainees, university students and researchers. We've talked about Mahmoud Khalil, who was detained and sent to Louisiana over being a protest organizer. Also, earlier this week, we had Rumeysa Öztürk, a Turkish doctoral student at Tufts University, who was detained by plainclothes officers in broad daylight and notified that her visa had been revoked. Now, do you know why her visa was revoked?
No, I do not.
It was because she co-authored an op-ed March of last year, so a year ago, that was critical of the university Tufts for their response to the student government asking them to cut ties with Israel over the war in Gaza. So that is being spun as she is pro-terrorism.
Oh, wow.
And this is a woman who went to America after winning a Fulbright scholarship, completed her master's at Columbia, and then started her doctorate at Tufts. These are brilliant people that we want working here. But the whole point is they don't fit the agenda, so it's terrorism
Right.
against them, so that they'll self-deport, so that they'll stay out of here.
Boy. Some people, man. We're sorry our government's so stupid.
Yeah, and if you read what Trump supporters are saying on the internet, they believe anyone here on a visa is living under a privilege that should be dangled on a thread over their head with a threat to cut them off at any point, just to compel obedience, just to keep them from saying anything critical, as if they are here as our pets or something.
Oh, wow.
But they ignore the Constitution. So the Constitution, over several cases over decades, has both outlined that people in the country, whether they're citizens or not, are protected by the Constitution, and that's been expanded over time through subsequent cases to not just include people who are here legally, but anybody that's here, whether they're illegal or not. They are at least owed due process. So in 1903, SCOTUS held that, quote, an alien who has entered the country and has become subject in all respects to its jurisdiction and a part of its population could not be deported without an opportunity to be heard upon the questions involving his right to be and remain in the United States, i.e. due process. Fast forward 50 years, 1953, the Supreme Court said once an alien lawfully enters and resides in this country, he becomes invested within the rights guaranteed by the Constitution to all people within our borders. But expanded to that in 1953, the court added, aliens, in a separate case added, aliens who have once passed through our gates, even illegally, may be expelled only after proceedings conforming to traditional standards of fairness encompassed in due process of law. And so what we see here is, as time has gone on, we have learned better and we have done better and we have defined these rights as anyone within our country because we're America. Like that's what we believe in. There's a separate link. We'll have links for all these stories in the podcast description. So please look those up. The next story is from ABC News. Museums and parks must remove some items related to race and gender. So what we have here is classic fascist revisionism. They want things that are supposedly anti-American and divisive to be removed from, like, the Smithsonian. And what do you suppose that kind of stuff is, Todd?
It's probably anybody who is a darker skin complexion than the average European.
And anything that might make a white person feel guilty, right? Like, we can't talk about
shameful, yeah.
We can't talk about segregation. We can't talk about Jim Crow. But to me, that is America. The most American thing is improving every day. Now, we just talked about it in the last story. We talked about it last week with the Maya Angelou rule. Do the best you can, and when you know better, do better. And that's what makes America great. It's not about romanticizing our history. It's not about saying so. I want to read this highlighted section from the story about the museum.
Okay.
So this comes from an executive order that Trump signed. The order said that the exhibits and programs that it seeks to remove undermine the nation's, quote, unparalleled legacy of advancing liberty, individual rights, and human happiness by casting its success as, quote, inherently racist, sexist, oppressive, or otherwise irredeemably flawed. So that's the point of the order. It feels like we can't mention the things that make America seem irredeemably flawed. But that's what's great about America, is that as flawed as we are, as flawed as we've always been, it's never been irredeemable.
Right.
For God's sakes, we were the country of slavery. We were one of the last countries to end slavery. We saw Haiti end slavery, and we outcast them. We blockaded them. We wouldn't let them have trade with us, and Haiti still suffers to this day from choices America and her neighbors made back in the 1800s revolving Haitian slave revolution. But we still got better. We got over it. We moved ahead. And the next phase of it was Jim Crow and segregation. And again, massive flaw that we redeem ourselves from. But the only way we redeem ourselves is by acknowledging it and doing better. When we know better, we have to do better. But that's what's great about America. It's like people who are anti-science. And they say, oh, well, science is constantly changing its conclusions. And that's the point.
That's how science works.
That is the point. We learn and we do better. We learn better, we do better.
We're like, oops, my bad. Here's what it is now because we found new information. Yeah.
And it's like Pete Carroll, the former coach of the Seahawks, the national championship and Super Bowl winning coach. It's like he says, you got to get better every day. Because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And so I submit that the Trump administration, through this executive order and other actions, they're making us worse every single day. Because the most American thing I can think of is acknowledging a flaw and improving yourself, improving your country.
Yeah.
Help yourself, help your neighbor, help your nation. Any other thoughts on that before I move to the next story?
No, go ahead.
All right, we're marching right through. We're making great time. Hopefully we're not going too fast for everybody. If you need to rewind and listen again, please do.
Yeah.
Again, this is the ADHD podcast. We're hyperactive. We're attention deficit.
Neurospicy to the nth degree.
And I'm anxious as hell about all this. So we're doing the best.
There's also a lot of stuff on. Why does it keep?
You cut off again.
It did again. There is a lot of stuff to go through on the show notes. We don't have to go through every single story, at least not the ones that I posted. We can skip some of those, but yeah, I don't know. I'm getting too loud. Maybe that's why it keeps cutting itself off. I don't know how to change that. So
it's all right. I've got just a few more to go, and obviously we're going pretty quick here, so I think we're doing okay. So here's an interesting one that's coming off of. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you're somewhat aware of Signalgate. We discussed it the story basically broke when we recorded our first episode last week. So this is a follow-up from that, just as a comparison point. So, excuse me. So I've got all my links up, but I don't have them in the correct order. There we go. So I'm going to read this story from NBC News and just chime in when you think you know what the story's about. Okay. A federal worker accidentally includes a journalist on a detailed message in advance of a government operation. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, no, that's Seghef, right? Whatever his name was.
Except it's not.
It's not?
While that sounds like the case of the Atlantic editor-in-chief being added to a group signal chat by Trump's national security advisor, Michael Waltz, it's actually a Department of Homeland Security employee who told colleagues she inadvertently sent unclassified details of an upcoming ICE raid to a journalist in January. So, same thing. Basically, the same thing of accidentally including a journalist on a potentially sensitive but not classified message. And unlike Waltz and Hegseth, who both remain in their jobs, the career DHS employee was put on administrative leave and told last week that the agency intends to revoke her security clearance, which means she doesn't get to work in this field at all anymore. She's got to go find a whole new line of work now. And it's just, I highlight this story to demonstrate the double standard, the hypocrisy. If you're not in the inner circle, you would get busted like this. There was a military serviceman a year or so ago who was sharing classified stuff on his Call of Duty Discord server with his friends. He's in jail, as far as I'm aware. But if you're part of the inner circle, they just rally they rally around you. They start shooting the messenger.
Protect your own kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and I think it's very telling that the Trump administration is calling it a hoax, because we've heard them call plenty of things hoaxes, and if they're all, and now I just got to assume that everything they've called a hoax is as legitimate as this story.
Like I said last week, anytime that Trump says that's a lie, that's fake news, I believe it to be true, just automatically.
Yeah, and I think one thing we can do here in this podcast is try and be a Trump interpreter. And I think one thing we've learned now that we can say for sure is Donald Trump says it's a hoax. That means it's true information that he finds damaging.
Yeah.
And that's how you should read it. If he says hoax, read it as direct hit.
Read it as projection. It's like anytime they say the left has done this, this, and this, they're telling on themselves. This is what we've done, and we don't want to be caught by it, so we're going to blame them for it.
And then furthering our fall into fascism, our next story is about how Disney and ABC have been hit with FCC investigation over their DEI policies. So this comes from, where did I apparently don't have the link to that one up. Let me click on this here.
It's all good.
So this comes from CNN. So in a letter to Disney CEO Bob Iger, the FCC chair wrote that he wants to ensure that Disney and ABC have not been violating FCC equal employment opportunity regulations by promoting, quote unquote, invidious forms of DEI discrimination. I don't know what invidious means. I don't know if they meant insidious, but
probably insidious.
But yeah, they're basically saying you're not violating equal employment by looking for DEI hires, are you? No. You just need to hire the first white man that comes through the door. Don't look any further. Like, to me, equal employment opportunities is about expanding the pool of candidates beyond just the people you know in daily life and into the populations that you might not be familiar with, because there's great candidates there. It's not about filling a quota. It's about expanding the search. And so what we have here is an attempt to get Disney to comply. And we have lots of evidence of people complying in advance. We have law firms that could win cases against the Trump administration that are just going along with what they say. And this is what's really scary to me, because this is exactly how you fall into fascism, is when the corporations start complying, when the law firms start complying, there's not much else the rest of us can do.
Right.
So and again, this is unabashed fascism, just trying to say, no, this is the way that you should think about the world. Because traditionally a conservative would say you can't tell a corporation how to do their hiring. If they want to look for if they want to look for candidates in uncommon populations, that's their prerogative. But now the administration is coming in here and saying, no, you need to narrow your search. You need to hire more people that look and sound and act a certain way. And
yeah.
Now what do we do about this? Short of writing your congressman, and I guess that's really the thing to do for most of this, is to call your congressman, call your representative, call your senator. I did that for the first time here recently with the Senate vote for cloture on the continuing resolution that happened last month. Called Senator Maria Cantwell because I had heard that she was potentially a vote for cloture, and just told her, hey, I voted for you every time you've ever run. I'm never going to vote for you again if you vote for cloture without getting something in return. Now, I'm assuming I was one of many that made a similar phone call, because she ended up not voting for cloture. And everything I hear is that calling your congressman works the best. Calling your representative, calling your senator, flood their inbox.
Right.
They can ignore email, they can ignore notes and letters, but when their phone lines are constantly tied up because people are calling in, they listen to that. So if there's anything you take away from this is an action people can do, call. And maybe we can put up if you don't know how to Google the phone number for your local office, please reach out to us, comment on our Facebook, send us a message. We'll help you out there.
Yeah.
And then lastly, for this news, just to demonstrate that the Republicans are not serious about helping anybody other than themselves and their cronies. The Republicans are now going, not only do they want to end the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is one of the best things our government has done in the last 10 years or however long it's been, but now they want to, the Biden administration had capped overdraft fees at $5. Well, they're going to put an end to that. Excuse me. So the Republicans are out to make Americans ripe for scams and ripoffs. That's really the whole domestic agenda of the Trump administration, is take away the regulations, make the world safe for scam artists. And even though, like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the biggest Medicare fraud in history, or at least at the time it was done by Republican Senator Rick Scott.
Oh.
So, yeah, during his tenure as chief executive, the company defrauded Medicare, Medicaid, and other federal programs. The U.S. Department of Justice won 14 felony convictions against the company he was chief executive of, and they were fined $1.7 billion in what was at the time the largest healthcare fraud settlement in U.S. history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and while they try and end the Consumer Protection Bureau, all while screaming for waste, fraud, and abuse. I think I don't know which Trump admin official it was, but he was on an interview this past week where they said he compared his grandmother who's on Social Security, and he said if Social Security payments don't come in for a week or two, his grandmother wouldn't complain. He says the people complaining are the ones committing fraud. He said the fraudsters are the loudest and most violent complainers. And I'm thinking, wait a second, is this actually like a Freudian slip regarding Trump? Because who's been more shouty, loudy, crying wolf over everything than Trump? Like, I think Trump demonstrates that better than anybody else. I mean, I do think Trump is the biggest fraudster we have in the country right now.
I think it was him that said that protesting Tesla is illegal. I was like, why?
They want to try and make it so.
The average person can't afford a Tesla, so who are you going to come after? You're going to come after someone who spent $1,000 on a used car? Are you going to come after that person? I don't know. It's ridiculous. And then, have you seen the video? I don't know what it was for. It was some news broadcast where Elon was basically, he was whining. He was like, it's not fair. He got on stage and he made fun of my company because his stocks had dropped.
Oh, he was talking about Tim Walz.
Yeah. He's like, he's a jerk. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I saw a great comparison on that about so 1 week Musk is saying that empathy is a great weakness,
right?
And then the next week, my feelings are hurt because he's making fun of my stock price. Yeah, empathy for thee, but not for everyone else.
The one that cracked me up is the audio from him saying that, and then the video is showing him running on stage with a chainsaw.
Right.
So.
Which, of course, was a nice little rendition of the Argentinian president who was trying to use a chainsaw on stage.
Oh, is that what he was poking fun of that guy? Okay, I didn't know.
He was mimicking it because they're all these. That's the guy in Argentina who pulled a crypto scam on his country, which is also very similar to Trump, who's pulled a crypto scam on his own supporters the day before his inauguration this year.
So, like, didn't Elon have like a crypto thing happening where he called that Doge as well?
There was a Dogecoin. I don't know if that had anything to do with Elon, because that was, but it might have.
I mean, I remember him talking about it. There was like one of the last times I ever tuned into to Joe Rogan's podcast. He was talking about Doge for like 10 minutes. I was like, I don't care about this shit. I'm gonna turn this off. And that was the last time I ever listened to that podcast. But when he's so nice,
Dogecoin is a cryptocurrency created by software engineers Billy Marcus and Jackson Palmer, who decided to create a payment system as a joke. And the value of Dogecoin right now is currently 18 cents.
Okay, that's funny. Because he was promoting the hell out of it on Twitter back when
They
that first
all
came
they
out.
do is they create a meme coin to go viral so they can pull a pump and dump scheme is what they're doing. Is
Okay.
they get people to buy in right away after they're bought in from initiating the coin. And it's illegal in a lot of ways depending exactly how you do it, but no one is doing anything about it right now.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. When people start talking about the Department of blah 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 blah, whatever the acronym for Doge is, I was like, Doge. Why is everyone talking about this Dogecoin thing? Because that's what I initially thought they were talking about. I thought talking about this fucking cryptocurrency, and I was like, did the U.S. government just now make that an official currency of our country? What's going on? And then I realized it's whatever Elon's in charge of in our federal government, which.
Yeah, he named it. He gave it the acronym that came out to be Doge because he thinks he's riding on viral success and he just wants to be hip and he thinks
He,
that's
he
a clever way to do it
he
and
likes
get the
that.
kids all on board.
He likes that word, is what it is. It's one of his hyper focuses, I think, because he talked about I think he even talked about Doge when he hosted SNL a few years back too. So it's just like his obsession with the letter X.
Exactly what I was going to say. It's just like X for him. Yep.
Yeah, no, he named all of his kids a variation of X. Like his trans daughter, or her dead name starts with an X, and then his newest kid, the one who told Trump he's not the president, also named his X. So it's one of his hyper focuses. So yeah, he makes all of us neurodivergent people that are trying to not piss off everybody around us look bad, because it's not something we do on purpose. We don't do these things on purpose, and I'm not even sure if he's doing these things on purpose. He just thinks they're a really good idea. It's giving him a dopamine hit, so he's like, "Oh, this Doge, I like this name Doge. We're gonna use that as an acronym for my part of the federal government, and I'm gonna hire these 17-year-old kids to find money for me and take it away from other people, kind of thing."
And then it becomes this clown show that hides the true intent of basically just
Yeah.
they're trying to fire everyone in the federal government. They're trying to they're trying to do that Curtis Yarvin rage thing, which is retire all government employees.
Oh, I saw another thing today that cracked me up, and I should probably be posted on the if I haven't already posted it on Blue Sky, I'm going to. There's a video, and I think it's an AI video of Elon putting on Cheeto dust onto Trump.
I've seen this. Yes.
So good.
Painting his shade of orange.
Yeah, using a bag of Cheetos.
Well, that wraps up the political news for the week. And now we can transition over to What's Geek this week.
What's Geek this week? And yeah, we did it in less than 45 minutes. Yay!
Woo, blowing through it.
Blowing through it. So let me pull up my Google Doc. And which ones did we decide we wanted to talk about? Because I grabbed a bunch. The Critic, right?
I'm definitely interested in hearing what you have to say about this Critic revival. I certainly had thoughts on the X-Men in the multiverse, but
Okay.
I don't want to spoil too much. So definitely pick out a couple things besides those two also.
Didn't we mention that? No, we didn't mention it last week. I think I talked to somebody else about it. They announced in a
Talking to other people, Todd.
they announced or a few days ago in a 5-hour live stream all the actors that are going to be in Avengers Doomsday. And
Now, it's not necessarily all of them. It's all that they're announcing right now.
well, I mean, that's like what, 12 people?
Are you saying they announced 12 or there's still 12?
They've announced 12 names, 12 or 15
Is it
names.
only 12?
I mean, I can get the list. Hold on, let me
I felt
pull-
like that train of chairs went on forever.
Yeah, well, it's because it was a 5-hour live stream and they were like slowly going down the line. Let's see here. Google Avengers Doomsday. I did know that Patrick Stewart and Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen are coming back. We can only assume that they're going to be playing Xavier and Magneto, but you never know. They might have something else for him because RDJ is going to be Doomsday. He's not going to be Iron Man, so it's possible these people are coming back as somebody else entirely, right? Nope.
Yeah, they could do a weird multiversal swap here where everybody's somebody else.
So
But
I pulled up the IMDb page, full cast and crew, and it shows here that James Marsden is coming back as Scott Summers / Cyclops. Rebecca Romaine is coming back as Mystique. Sir Patrick Stewart is, in fact, going to be Professor Xavier or Professor X. Tom Hiddleston will be Loki. Let's see who else. Channing Tatum is going to be playing Gambit again because we didn't get enough of his terrible accent in the Wolverine and Deadpool movie.
I loved it. I loved his portrayal.
He looked and sounded just like what we expect him to sound like, but it was. I think he could have pulled a little bit back on the accent. It didn't have to be quite so thick. Where is it? Eric Lensher is in fact Ian McKellen, and so yeah, it's basically. You want me to go down the list of all the people that they've announced so far?
Now, real quick, do you think that IMDb has an inside scoop on this, or do you think that IMDb is just assuming that they're playing those characters?
Well, these are all the names that were on that video, that 5-hour video. These are all the names. I watched the abridged version of the video, which just basically showed up all the different chairs that they showed.
That's what I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and so we have basically everybody from the last Avengers movie, I think, minus Captain America, Hulk, and basically all the people that died in the last movie.
Was Chris Hemsworth on the list?
Chris Hemsworth is playing Thor in this movie, yes. Anthony Mackie is Sam Wilson, Captain America. Bucky Barnes, Sebastian Stan. Let's see here. Simu Liu is Shang-Chi, which he did that movie. Winston Duke is
Shang-Chi, yeah.
Shang-Chi. Winston Duke is coming back as M'Baku from Black Panther. M'Baku. Let's see who else.
I saw Shuri was in there.
Yes, Shuri is coming back. Latia Wright, I think is how you pronounce her name.
Letitia Wright.
And then Tenoch Huerta is coming back as Namor. So Namor.
And what was he in?
He was in the second Black Panther. The one.
That's right.
Where Shuri becomes Black Panther.
Yes.
Kelsey Grammer is coming back as Beast. We have Wyatt Russell is coming back as U.S. Agent John Walker. Red Guardian is coming back with David Harbour. They also have their. Huh?
Yelena also from the Thunderbolts.
Yes, Thunderbolts. Yeah, that's the next Marvel movie coming out. Is things coming up in the next couple months, next couple weeks.
Yeah, this is why I say I don't know if they listed all the names, because I think part of the reason they made sure to get those Thunderbolts actors that are going to be in it listed is because they want to. I've heard that's kind of like they want to get people interested in the Thunderbolts, so it's like, oh, they're going to be in Doomsday, I better see Thunderbolts.
Right. I mean, that's a possibility, but I don't think that there might be a few like hidden. They're not going to show the names until the movie comes out, kind of thing. I'm sure we might. I'm assuming, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming that at some point we're going to see Deadpool and Wolverine in there, maybe as a quick little. They're hiding in the room, kind of like they did the X-Men in the second Deadpool movie, where everybody was just hanging out in the room.
I do wonder about Deadpool, because I have a whole theory about Deadpool, that Deadpool is so the thing about Deadpool is he is the writer of his own stories. So any Deadpool comic or show or movie is just Deadpool telling us a story,
Right.
and we don't know if it's really happening or not. And that's why like that would explain why his movies are ostensibly set in the MCU, but it doesn't look exactly like the rest of the MCU does. It has
Well,
some different characters.
now in Deadpool versus Wolverine, that is the first Deadpool MCU movie. Period. So before that, it was still the Fox Entertainment X-Men movies. That's why in the first one you didn't see any of the X-Men except for the big steel Russian dude, which I drawing a blank on.
Colossus.
Colossus, thank you. He was in it, but that's because he wasn't really in any. He was, but he wasn't a main character in any of the other X-Men movies.
Right, but something that the filmmakers have talked about, especially with the first Deadpool movie, where they have the downed carrier, they couldn't specifically use assets from the MCU, but they were trying to set it up so that you could say it was in the MCU at a
Right.
later date once it all came together. Like they were trying to leave that door open, but ultimately, I just think the Deadpool stuff is just whatever he says happens. So
Right.
I could see a companion film to Doomsday of like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe type of deal.
I mean,
where
somebody said that Doomsday is essentially leading into Secret Wars,
right,
and you know we're gonna probably see a little bit of the X-Men versus the Avengers in this movie.
and to that extent, this kind of goes to the Facebook conversation that was had. Is do you think that the Avengers are just going to kill off the original X-Men, and then that's how we set the stage for new X-Men after a reset, or what do you think is going to happen there?
I think it might be just kind of it's going to be more multiverse stuff where we're going to see like original X-Men. Probably not going to see Wolverine, but possibly. I mean, they're not going to lead with that because they want other people to be like, oh, hey, they're going to see these other X-Men characters. That's cool. We might actually, I don't know. I'm hoping that we're going to see maybe him sitting at the bar and telling Xavier to go fuck himself again. But beyond that, I think it's going to lead into a new team of X-Men. You know, we're going to see a younger version of some characters. Kind of like they did with the Days of Future Past. I think is with the last one. No, Apocalypse was the last one. But
So do you think a new class of X-Men will show up by Secret Wars? Or do you think there's going to be a big reset and then we'll gradually bring in new X-Men in the future?
what I'm thinking is going to happen is because people want to see the original cast, we're going to see them at least at the beginning of this movie or at some point during this movie. And then we're also going to be introduced to new versions of those same characters by other people. Maybe Jennifer Lawrence may come back as the younger, Mystique. Or some of the other people from the newer version of the X-Men.
Right, because I think it's important to point out that the Doomsday teaser had none of the new class X-Men. It had none of the McAvoy era
No,
X-Men
it did not.
in the cast. Which maybe that's just going to be a head fake, and they're all going to be in it as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to have two generations of X-Men teaming up to fight Doom or the Avengers or however it goes.
Right. The other thing we wanted to talk about, there's a couple different things. One of them being The Critic, the TV show The Critic from, I think, was it the late 90s or early 2000s?
It was mid to late 90s for sure.
Okay. The Critic was a show that was created by, I think, one of the creators of The Simpsons, because its animation style is very similar.
He showed up in a Simpsons episode.
Without the jaundice, yeah. But yeah, he apparently said on social media that there's a possibility of a revival with John Lovitz. It's what it says. This is what it says here on comicbook.com. The Simpsons and Family Guy might stand at the top of the hill when it comes to Fox's animation slate, but Springfield and Quahog's finest are far from the only characters that became popular on the network. Jay Sherman, a.k.a. The Critic, first debuted in 1994. There it is. Garnering 2 seasons and may many moments that have become memes online. While nothing has officially been confirmed, one of the creators responsible for the original animated series is hinting at a revival that might see Jon Lovitz return to the role of the titular character. I actually thought the show was hilarious because it kind of was like it came out before Family Guy, and it was kind of doing the cutaway stuff that Family Guy is famous for before Family Guy did it. And it was always kind of a spoof on the what were the two film critics, the tall skinny guy and the short fat
Siskel and Ebert.
Siskel and Ebert, thank you. I was thinking, Abbott and Costello of film reviews, but I mean, literally,
Who's on film?
They were the men on film. Yeah, they were the tall, skinny one and the short, fat one. And that's kind of what they looked like, anyhow. But yeah, it was a spoof on that. But they would show like these movie trailers that were parodies. Like it was like Jaws 27, or just weird stuff like that. So yeah, I would absolutely watch it if they came out with a new version of The Critic.
And interesting enough, The Critic, I looked it up here real quick, and it said it was 1994 to 2001. And I'm like, I don't remember it being on for that long. But it was only 3 seasons. So it's actually been revived once before. So it had a season in 94, a season in 95, and then season 3 is in the year 2000.
Yeah, season 3 was like a web series, if I remember. It was on YouTube. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, YouTube didn't exist yet, but
well, I mean, it was online either way. So, but it was a web series. I remember that.
And funny enough, episode 1 of season 3 was about the X-Men. And we've got Wolverine and Cyclops and Storm right here in the thumbnail.
But yeah, no, it was his catchphrase, "It stinks," no, it's one of the characters that Jon Lovitz does that makes me laugh and not want to change the station, because his characters are always kind of hit and miss with me.
And he needs something to do. I haven't seen Jon Lovitz in quite a while, and I love his character in The Wedding Singer, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I as far as I'm concerned, it's the greatest rom-com of all time.
And that character is at the beginning of Little Nicky too.
Yes, which is one of the worst films I've seen in a theater, I think.
I love that movie. It's so funny. What's an egg? About $500. But no, that was one of those movies that when it first came out, and I lost it again. Okay, I got too close to the mic and it muted me. It was one of those DVDs that I would put in my DVD player, and my DVD player would just sit there and play the menu music over and over again because I'd fall asleep watching it. And my roommate was like, "Can you stop watching that movie before you go to sleep, please? Because that music is driving me bonkers." And yeah, but it's I don't know. There was so much of that movie I really liked because I'm still a bit of a metalhead, but I was really into heavy metal at the time that movie came out. I had long hair. I was still relatively not fat, and
yeah, that's something. Is you actually have an era where you weren't fat. I've been overweight since I was about 8 years old.
I was that weird kid who would eat lots of sugar. And people thought I was a pothead because of the amount of sugar I would eat. And I think, no, I'm naturally this weird.
But I've seen your yearbook photos that you posted on occasion, and I'm like, oh, Todd, he wasn't even fat then. He's a lucky bastard.
I was, well, in the early 2000s, at the time that the show was popular, late 90s, early 2000s, I was maybe $160. I was
$160 in like the 5th grade.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I liked the show. I thought the parodies of the movies that they made fun of were clever. I believe the first 2 seasons, the ones that were on TV, are available, I think, on Hulu, either Hulu or it's on one of the free streaming ones. So it's either on Freevee or it's on like Tubi or what's the other one? One of the free streaming sites. Either way, just look up The Critic. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere. It's available free to watch.
And did you say, would this be a Fox show again, or did they hint at where it would come back on?
I'm thinking if it's anything like previous Fox shows, It's going to be like an exclusive on Hulu.
Because I'm just wondering, like, if you want to see this show after you get done calling your senator and your congressman, you know call up. I don't know, who would you call up to get to say you want to see the critic. I guess just tweet at John Lovitz.
Let's take a look. It's on Tubi right now. That's what it's on.
And they just have, I'm sure they just have the rights to the syndication, but
yeah, they have the first 2 seasons on Tubi. And it's John Lovitz, Nick Jameson, Maurice LaMarche, Nancy Cartwright, Christine Cavanaugh. Oh man, rest in peace. Christine Cavanaugh, if you're not familiar, was the original voice of Chucky on Rugrats.
On Rugrats, okay, yeah, I knew that. I knew. Oh, or was it Chucky?
Yeah, she was Chucky. She was also the original voice of all the moms on South Park as well.
And she, I know she's also. I mean, once you hear her voice, you recognize it 1,000 places.
Yeah,
she did all sorts of animation. I think she was involved in All Real Monsters as one of the monsters.
She was the one with the giant lips and the eyeballs.
Yeah.
She was also the girlfriend of Ugg on Salute My Shorts on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, she played the mail lady.
Yeah. Yeah, she suffered some depression issues, I think, and took her life in 2000.
And that ties back into what we were talking about earlier, where people stress the F out and make poor choices, and I think we can get people making a lot better choices with the institution of a guaranteed income. I also, something I meant to mention at the top of the show during that segment was, in all the research I've ever done on a UBI, I have always found it to be the case that every dollar spent towards a guaranteed income is multiplied when we get it back in the economy. It never hurts the economy. It never costs us money as a nation. We spend money on the program, but it always has a compounding effect where you get more benefit out of it from a dollar standpoint in the GDP or however you want to measure the economy. You get more for it than you spend on it always. Right.
So there was one more story that I wanted to talk about before we end the show, and that is there apparently Netflix has got the rights to doing a live action TV series for Scooby-Doo. And this is what it says here. Zoinks! The Scooby-Doo live series we first heard about last year is God damn it. I'm getting...
See, Scooby's got you too excited, and now, they got to tone you down.
I need to stop. God damn it. Fuck off with the shit. Come on, knock it off. I don't know how to turn that off. It's okay. Absolutely pissing me off. You know what?
Todd needs a Scooby snack.
Seriously though, I think I'm going to switch back over. God.
It's going crazy right now. It really doesn't want to. It does not want the people to hear about the Scooby-Doo live action.
All right, so I'm trying to keep my voice calm because it keeps like turning down the volume, and I don't know if it's the microphone doing this or if it's some software doing this or what. It needs to stop though.
Hopefully we don't find out that I've been just muted this whole time.
No, you're fine. I think what I'm going to do next week is...
It's a mystery.
Motherfucker!
Oh man. This is fun though. This is just...
It's not fun. This is not fun. This is not fun for me. I don't like this. I want it to fucking stop. I don't even remember what I was saying now because this keeps happening. What I'm gonna say is next week I'm not using this mic in this capacity anymore. I'm not using the USB side of it because I think that's part of it. I'm gonna hook it up to my mixer recording system. It never does this with that, so I'm gonna use that next time. What was trying to say is that it looks like the assumption is the live action Scooby-Doo is going to be akin to the Riverdale series on the CW, which was kind of a weekly mystery. Every week there was a new bad guy who was trying to hurt somebody in Riverdale. And I mean that's kind of the way the Scooby Gang was originally back in 1969 anyhow. So I don't see that as a bad thing. And I liked Riverdale. So
I heard good things about Riverdale. I never saw it. I don't really watch the CW. In fact, I'm a YouTube TV subscriber, so I don't even know if I get the CW.
CW, you can't find that series on CW anymore. I think you have to go to Netflix to find it. But I thought it was,
That's set in the Archie comics universe. Is that the case?
I mean, it's based on the Archie comics series. It is the Archies in name only because the characters are all the characters you recognize. But think of like the characters from Archie and then you put them into like X-Files or Gravity Falls.
Oh, that does sound pretty interesting, actually.
So it has the look of like a clean cut like high school from like the the old days kind of thing. They don't even specify what the decade is for the show. There's each episode. Excuse me. Each episode's a little weird in that you don't really have people don't have cell phones in the show. So it could take place in the 80s for all we know, or the 70s or whatever. But based on the clothing alone, it's current day stuff. But yeah, I went in thinking this is gonna be stupid. Like this is gonna be like every other CW teen drama. It's gonna
right.
be,
That's immediately what I think of. Yeah,
and it's nothing. I mean, there is teen drama stuff in it because it is a CW, but it's more than that. It's a whodunit kind of series where the show Riverdale is narrated by Jughead, who's played by one of the two kids who was in Zack and Cody.
Oh,
one of the twins.
Sweet Life Boys.
The one of the twins, yeah. And so he narrates the whole series, hi, I'm, my name is Jughead, blah, 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 blah. And weird shit happens in my town of Riverdale. And towards that series end, they kind of like did some crossover with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and because that's also written by the same people, the original comics.
Original Marissa Joan Hart.
No, they use the one from Netflix. The girl.
Okay.
From, yeah.
My wife watches that show, so I'm somewhat familiar with it.
Dude, that show was really good too, by the way. I really enjoyed both shows. If you haven't watched Riverdale, I recommend it, especially if you like kind of like the murder mystery type stuff. Yeah. And there's like you see characters, if you're familiar at all with Archie and his gang, Sabrina is a character you see at some point during the show. You see Josie and the Pussycats at some point during the show. The Groovy Ghoulies. These are all cartoons from like the 60s and 70s for me. So when I watched it, I was like, oh, I remember this character, And but no,
those were all the cartoons that would come on and be like, this isn't Ninja Turtles. What am I watching here? Yeah,
like we said earlier, I'm 10 years, give or take a couple years older than Doug. So for me, my childhood resides in the 70s and 80s. And so a lot of the stuff that I'm looking at, I'm going, oh, this reminds me of when I was a kid. And he's just like, oh, this looks familiar. I kind of remember this when I was young. But God damn it, brain, live action Scooby-Doo is going to be an hour TV show. And what I would love to see in this TV series is I would love it if Matthew Lillard was Norval's dad. Okay?
Because he, of course, played Shaggy in the most famous Scooby-Doo film, I think.
He replaced Casey Kasem when Casey retired.
Oh, doing the voice in the cartoon, too?
Yeah, absolutely.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, with the exception of one or two that had famous people voicing the titular characters, Matthew's been the voice of Scooby since I want to say the late 90s. Since after he did that movie. No, wait.
That movie was 2000 or something, or was it a little bit later?
It would have been I think early 2000s to 2010. I think that's right around where the original voice of Scooby or Shaggy retired because he was dealing with some health issues. Casey Kasem. He took over for the role of Shaggy because he did such a good job on the live action theatrical movies like Zoinks you know, and he was actually one of the people that was very vocal about the last Scooby-Doo movie that came out in theaters called Scoob. He's like, I don't know why Warner Brothers didn't have me and the rest of the original cast do it for this movie because, you know, let's be honest, the character voices they chose were not great.
Was that an animated feature?
Yeah, it was supposed to start a Hanna-Barbera universe in movies.
Oh, that would have been interesting. But it didn't work out, did it?
It didn't work out because you find out later in the movie that the bad guy is Dick Dastardly, okay? And I don't know if you remember who Dick Dastardly is.
Oh, that name rings a bell.
Kind of the old school mustache, the handlebar mustache kind of guy, and he had the
yes.
the dog that would laugh like that.
Right.
And
right.
So the story surrounds him and his dog to a degree. You find out later in the movie. I don't want to ruin anything if you haven't seen that movie. Scoob is what it's called. It's on Max, I believe. It's not a terrible movie. It's kind of an origin story for Scooby and Shaggy. But that was supposed to start a whole like movie universe of Hanna-Barbera characters going from Scooby-Doo all the way over to like Blue Falcon and all this other stuff. And it didn't do well and I believe it didn't do well in theaters because they had like celebrity voices doing like Fred, Velma, Daphne, and Scooby and Shaggy. Although Scooby was voiced by the current actor who does Scooby. He's the only person out of the entire cast who carried over from the previous cartoon TV shows and other animated movies that went straight to video. Frank Welker, the voice of several generations at this point. He was the original actor who plays Fred and has played Fred since 1969, with the exception of like 3 or 4 movies and in maybe 1 or 2 animated series. But he's been Fred almost in every incarnation. I think it's in his contract that he has to play at least one character in Scooby-Doo, whether if it's not Scooby or Fred, it's something. He played Fred's dad in Velma, I believe. And
he's one of the more famous voice actors in everything. I mean, he's been on Inspector Gadget, Super Friends, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Muppet Babies.
Dude, he was... So, you name all these... The thing is the voice he used in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends is the same voice he uses for Fred. That's his normal speaking voice. That's the way he talks. He doesn't change anything when he talks like Fred. He's also the voice of Ray Stantz in The Real Ghostbusters, as well as Slimer. He's Dr. Claw in Inspector Gadget, which is the same voice he uses for Soundwave in Transformers, and the Cave of Wonder in Aladdin. So he's like a voiceover god. Anytime I meet a voice actor, I say, "Tell me a Frank Welker story. I want to hear something about Frank Welker." And they're always happy to tell stories about Frank because he's that cool of a guy.
And speaking of cartoons coming back, I also saw this week that Darkwing Duck is coming back with the original voice actor as well.
Really? They're bringing back Darkwing Duck with Jim Cummings? Cool.
Yep.
I met him last year and like 10 years ago. Both times he did Taz for me, which I immediately turned into like an 8-year-old kid. I mean, even though his version of Taz came out when I was in my late teens, Tazmania was a fantastic cartoon. It's on Max if you haven't seen it. It came out in like the early 2000s or maybe the 90s. I can't remember which, but it's kind of like just Taz being a Tasmanian devil in Australia or Tasmania, and he is it's kind of like a family sitcom, where he is like the oldest sibling, I think, or maybe he's the middle child, because he has a sister and a younger brother in that show. And so I met Jim Cummings last summer at SummerCon here in Washington State. Washington State SummerCon happens every June at the Puyallup Fairgrounds or Washington State Fairgrounds, wherever they want to call it now. Yeah. And he's also the voice of Tigger and Winnie the Pooh.
Yep.
And he's also the voice of Hondo Tanaka, one of the characters from Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels, Hondo. He is also a character you see at the Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. And when I met him, I was like, man, I was just at Disneyland a couple weeks ago. And I heard your voice so many times in that park. He's like, oh yeah, I do this, and this. Oh, and they just added me on this. I was like, yes, I heard all of that. He goes, cool. Yeah. No, he seemed like a nice enough dude. I did find out that recently that he is a Trump supporter. So I luckily didn't know that when I met him, because I probably would have said something. I'm like, yeah, how about that, Jim? What do you say?
I wonder if he still is, given the light of this second administration stuff. But
I mean, I remember when the pandemic hit, he was like repeating all the stuff Trump was saying, and people shut him down quickly. He's like, no, Jim, that is not how that works. He goes, apparently I was wrong. So,
well, at least he can admit that. That's a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's just trying to like keep himself from getting himself into like, how do they put it, like social cash, where he loses his social,
Oh yeah, he wanted to keep his social capital.
Capital. That's the word I'm looking for. And but no, he seemed like a nice enough dude. He was really cool. I mean, I spent a lot of money getting an autograph and stuff, so I'm glad he was nice. But I met him that day, and I also met damn it, I just forgot his name. The guy who does the voice of Goofy, and I can't remember his name right now.
Oh yeah, I can't pull those.
Yeah, either way, he's been Goofy for like the last 35 years. Super nice dude. Geek. Yeah. But yeah, I'm actually not surprised that Darkwing Duck is coming back, because Darkwing Duck did make 2 or 3 appearances on the revival of DuckTales. So,
aha, okay.
That's
where that momentum comes from.
If you haven't seen that, it's on Disney Plus. I liked it. David Tennant was Scrooge McDuck on that, which is cool because he's an actual Scotsman. And the original voice who did Scrooge McDuck was a dude from I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he was Wilbur on Mr. Ed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now that was a show. That was one of the first TV shows I ever watched.
It was on
Nickelodeon.
It was on Nickelodeon in the 80s, and that was how I saw it. I didn't know Mr. Ed even existed before Nickelodeon. And Nickelodeon introduced me to so many great shows. They're all like...
It's true.
Yeah.
I was incredibly lucky to have the early 90s and late 80s Nickelodeon.
Yeah. Oh my God.
In terms of my geekdom.
So many great shows. A lot of the stuff I have, a lot of the videos I have on my computer for like watching when I'm bored are like cartoons and TV shows from the 80s and 90s from Nickelodeon. And I have a playlist of just like called Saturday Morning, where it plays all that stuff. I hit random, and it just plays a random episode that's sitting on my computer. And that was one of the shows I had on there too. So yeah.
It's a great way to keep your childhood constructed in a box and access it when you need to.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day, and I think I posted it, where it is, I was like, I think I figured out why I as an adult, I still like TV shows and things from my childhood, is because that was the last time I was really legitimately happy. I was like, that kind of hit a little hard, but yeah, it's very true. I mean, I watch these things and go, I remember watching this as a kid, and how much I liked it then, and today I still like watching those things. A lot of them have aged very well. Very few shows from my childhood have not aged well. So,
yeah. Well, that wraps up What's Geek this week. Do we have anything else we want to touch on?
Do we have? I know we talked offline about this. Do you want to talk about potential guests coming up?
Well, we will be having guests in the future. I don't know how soon. Maybe next week. We'll see about that.
Okay.
But we'll keep that we'll keep that under wraps for now. We
Okay.
definitely have one guest who's interested, and then probably going to see if we can start getting. I coexist in a world of stand-up comedy, so I have lots of access to comics that would probably love to come on here and vent about politics the way we do. So you can look forward to that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure if you're not subscribed to this, hit the subscribe button, whether it be on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're listening to this. Be sure to subscribe and follow us over on the social medias. Everything is located on my link tree, which is at adhd.rocks. That is the entirety of the website. You can throw in the www at the beginning if you want. If it makes it easier for you. But just go to adhd.rocks. The links to the podcast and the socials that are connected to this show are there, as well as my other links for things that I do. And if Doug has any public-facing links, I can throw those on there too if he wants, but that's up to him. So
We'll get there, and leave us a 5-star review on Spotify. Even if you don't believe it, just leave us the 5-star review. If you don't want to leave us 5 stars, don't leave any review.
if it gives you an option to give us a review and an upvote of any kind, do it. I mean, I think Spotify does it, Apple does it, I think, and if you're using the Podcast Addict app on your Android device, I think it also has a voting system where you can, if you like this episode or if you like this podcast, give it a thumbs up or a rating of any kind. Go ahead and do that. That'd be great.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
high.